I just don't want to. I don't want to do that thing where I forget to record because that's not good for anything.
Both places. Both places.
It would not be the first time it's happened. So
tell me more about that, because you're going to make me feel much better about my life in the last 3 years.
It just happens. You get in conversations and it's just so interesting and so engaging that you're like, wow, we just talked for 2 hours and you forgot to hit the record button.
Mm-hmm. It makes me feel so much better.
Welcome back to the More in Common podcast. For the first time, video on YouTube. We're excited to be here with Brad Lambert, our guinea pig for the video series of More in Common. So we're super excited to have him. Now, Brad was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so there's no surprise why he got into the sports industry after graduating from North Carolina State University. Brad followed his passion for the Steelers and all things Pittsburgh and worked in that industry for almost 10 years. I say that as a Patriots fan. After working with his favorite athletes, Hines, mad respect, Lynn, Swann, mad respect, and Willie Parker, mad respect, top sports franchises, Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Jets, killing me, and global brands, Lagardère, Unlimited, Hachette, Filipacchi Media, Hershey, Barnes & Noble. He decided to follow his other passion, film and entertainment. So he moved to Los Angeles and hit the ground running with the one and only Robert Downey Jr. And after about a year with the biggest name in Hollywood, he went to Warner Brothers and managed their digital marketing campaigns for 2 years, winning 3 CLIO Awards during his tenure for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and the Lego Batman movie and Kong Skull Island. For the last 3 years, he has been an independent producer, talent manager, and international speaker, working with the top brands, studios, celebrities, artists, and professionals in the industry. Prominent collaboration partners include Walt Disney Studios, Marvel Studios, Warner Brothers Pictures, Sony Pictures, Universal Pictures, Gary Vaynerchuk, who, mad respect again, Chris Hemsworth, my wife would love you, and the Russo Brothers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and more. So in 2019, he worked on the marketing campaigns for 2 of the biggest movies of all time, collaborating with Walt Disney Studios and Marvel Studios on their release of Avengers Endgame, and Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios for their release of Spider-Man Far From Home. So he is currently producing multiple film and TV projects, managing talent, and speaking all over the world. Whew. Put some spin on that on my own. I hope I didn't offend you, Brad, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. So look, I want to get right in. Today is Friday, September 11th, 2020. And I want to ask you if you remember where you were at 9/11, or like what was going on in your life.
I want to say I was in 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade. And I remember I was in, I think, gym class, and thing was very, the day was going very odd. Let's just put it that way. The teachers came in, everybody pulled us out of class. I remember I got a call from my mom, just like let me know what was happening, and they had like the news on and in the classroom, and I actually got a text from my dad that he was actually at the airport, and they grounded all the flights. So luckily, and gratefully, he was not on a plane, but he was about to be. And then our families took us out of class, and we all went home. And it was just one of the saddest, just crazy days.
Yeah. Keith, do you remember where you were?
I was just going to ask you the same thing. I do. I was a sophomore in college, just beginning sophomore year of college. And I was about to go home because I was at school 20 minutes away before I transferred to Purdue. And I was about to go home, and the first plane crashed. And it was just a whole bunch of chaos in the dorm. Like, everybody's talking about it. No one knew what was going on. And I headed out. And then my mom, I'm on the phone with her, with one of those Nokia phones that you could play Snake on for hours.
Classic.
Snake.
Classic. And my mom calls me and she tells me it happened. Like, she just tells me a plane crashed into the towers. And I was like, yeah, I know. I already saw it. I'm coming home. No, and it happened again. And I just didn't know what to do. So I got home and we just watched it and talked about it. And I think the thing I remember the most was the 6 months afterwards of just how unified the country was. The discourse was like everybody was together until they weren't again. And I think that'll always stick in my mind, especially as we continue doing what we do. How about you, dude?
Yeah, I had just taken a test and I was walking back through campus to actually stopped at so we went to Purdue, Brad. I stopped at Tarkington at the little market they had to get some food, and I saw they had a TV screen and I saw it and I like rushed up to my dorm, and it was just surreal. It was just surreal. I remember talking to my family. I don't remember the conversations because I remember just seeing the plane. Like, I was just like, what is going on? Is this reality? Like, what's happening right now? And then I don't remember when I talked to my dad. I don't think it was right away because I'm pretty sure he was at work, and my dad, he was an air traffic controller at the time. So, and a supervisor. So he was pretty busy. And I need to hit him up today and talk to him and ask him like what he remembers about it being at the center. Cause I think they went on kind of a lockdown and whatnot. And I should know that, but I just never really gotten into it with him. But yeah, just a tragic thing. And you bring up the solidarity afterwards, Keith. This country seems to rally around external threats better than internal, or really just like without having something to say that's our enemy. We can't like it seems to be hard for us to get together and say, hey, like let's get better.
Well, the hard thing is accountability. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to blame somebody else than to take accountability for what's happening right now in front of us.
Because that takes that hard look in. Yeah. I 100%. I mean, that's completely agree with you. That is, man, that's interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to ask you about that in particular, accountability. Like it's a big thing in your platform and what you do, and like you mentioned your dad, you mentioned your mom. How did that play out for you growing up? Like when you think about, do you think it's innate? What did your parents do? What was it like growing up that you have such a strong sense of accountability?
Definitely how I was raised. My mom, huge impact on my life. Definitely a mama's boy, and I always grew up wanting to just make my mom proud and make her happy, and never wanted to upset her in that regard. So I guess you could say growing up, that was like a main driving factor, right? Of making sure I didn't disappoint my mom. I wanted her to be happy, and I wanted her to be proud of me, and just the family element, just instilling all the right values, and just doing what's right, not what's easy. And yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, and the main thing is just kind of taking that accountability and understanding that life's a growing process, and you never stop growing. The moment you fail is really when you say, I'm perfect the way I am. And, it's like, dude, like you could be 85 and still growing and learning and adapt, because life's ever changing, right? The situations that we are involved in on a day-to-day basis are changing. Going back to what I said earlier, listening to understand, not to immediately respond. That's important, especially right now with the Black Lives Matter and injustices that are happening in our country. Accountability, right? One major freaking problem right now.
Yeah.
And also the fact that people don't want to hear it to understand. They want you to shut up so they could be like, no, you're wrong, and here's why.
Interesting you say that, because like in all of that, one of the big themes is if I start talking about how I feel as a black man in this country, or the experience or the history, oftentimes I'll get back the response like, this is still the best country on earth, which I would agree with, and I would say we're not where we were, but okay, like, it's still a great country, and we have work to do, and we can still get better. To your point, if we just settle with, oh, we're great, we're good, we don't have to do anything better, everybody's taken care of, everybody's good, everybody's healthy, happy, fed, and it's like, no, like, that's where failure happens. And I love that point. Like, the moment when you say I'm done, that's where failure starts. I like that.
Well, it's a sign of just like, we're America, we're perfect, we're the best country in the world. It's like, I will never understand your life, bro, because I'm not a black man in this country. I've never been a black man in this country, right? So it's ignorant for me to assume I know what you're going through. Even today, right? The past, way, 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 way worse. We've grown a lot.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're still dealing with this shit in 2020 is mind-blowing.
Man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, my best friend in the entire world, he's black. He's my brother. Like, my ride or die.
I saw your Instagram post, the one in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's my brother, man. Brother from another mother. It's like my ride or die, and like, when the George Floyd stuff happened, and just the nastiness that came out of that, I was just hurting so much for him, man.
How long have y'all been boys?
Yeah,
over a decade.
So Keith and I are at about like 19 years, and we talk about race all the time. Like, it was one of the first things we ever talked about. However, the conversations went to another level of deepness post Floyd.
Yeah.
Did you have that experience as well, or have you guys always been open about it?
Yeah,
or?
We've always been transparent. I think the main thing when it comes to this is like, for example, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I had one African American in my school growing up. One.
I think I had like 4.
And one was the running back. I know.
One was the running back.
So for me, I didn't have a lot of exposure to that growing up. Then I moved to North Carolina in 6th, 7th grade. Way more diverse. And it was a learning experience. And I grew. I learned. I understood. I gained that knowledge and background, and grew as a person, grew as an individual, right? And I was open to that, right? I was not raised a racist. I was not raised any way, shape, or form. But I did lack a lot of knowledge and understanding of the other side, the different cultures and things that I just, like, I was in a white suburb, right? Like, that's all I really had exposure to. But moving to North Carolina, it opened up everything, and I experienced all these different things.
How, at that age, because it's one of those things, like, I've recently been reading stuff about race at a different level, and like the whole concept of black only exists if there's a concept of white, but we just don't think about it, right? Like, we're indoctrinated into this system of this is just normal, right? And so in that, I've started to just kind of accept where I perpetuate racist systems. And I'm curious to understand, like, at such a young age, moving there, like, what was that experience like to give you that exposure? Was it you making friends? Was it your parents? Like, how did you learn and get better?
Like everything, it's just an experience. It's I'm a very social person, so I like meeting and talking to people. And when you're in that situation, especially going to a new school, you're forced to interact with everybody.
Yeah.
And whether good or bad, whether you like it or not, that's just a reality. Like, you're in class, you have classmates, you have group projects. It was a great opportunity. I wish I would have had that earlier, but where I grew up, that wasn't the case. But But then being in Charlotte, growing up, middle school, high school, etc., that was my life. And I grew. I learned a bunch. I was able to interact with so many different types of people from different backgrounds and orientations and religions. I mean, it was healthy in that way, because a lot of people grow up in a bubble, and then when stuff like this happens, it's easy to react in a fearful, I don't understand, so fuck this, like, you're wrong, like, and it's wrong. Like, I grew up, I learned much that I needed to kind of intake and experience, because people have different backgrounds, and I'm not going to knock you for yours and you can't knock me for mine. But if I stayed the same as I was in 6th grade before moving to Charlotte, that's on me. Right. So, like, a lot of people you hear today is like, you need to educate yourself, you need to have an open mind, you need to get out of your own way. Like, yeah, man, like, yes, like 100%.
All of it.
Like,
I gotta say, just even like your opening statement, like, I don't understand what it's like to be you or to be a black man in America. Like, we just met, like, right now. I wasn't even on the prep call, so I appreciate that. I just wanted to share that with you. Like, thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
And I think is a really important nuance in that is that openness of, yeah, but my best friend's black, but I still don't know your experience. Like you said, everybody has a different experience. Yeah. It's just, I don't know yours. And I think that's such a killer perspective that more people can have versus my best friend's black, so I know everything that you're going through.
Well, and so this is an interesting nuance, and I don't want to, I want to change the subject in a second, but an interesting nuance is that, like, even I perpetuate racial injustices and inequities, and not just racial, but other divides, LGBTQ plus and trans and binary, non-binary, like there's so many different constructs that I have fed into. Even being of an oppressed background myself, I've still fed into other systems of oppression and perpetuated them myself. So through this recent everything that's going on with COVID and post Floyd, I've even had some like really big moments of realizing where I fit in all this, from looking out, like, how am I perpetuating similar systems on other people? Yeah. So, to your point, this never ends. Like, I'm never done. I get to keep growing and realizing where I affect the world. So
we always fear what we don't understand. That's it. So, like, I don't understand the LGBTQ community. So, oh my God, like, fuck that. Like, it's like, educate yourself. Yeah. Like, the main thing right now is the lack of empathy across the board. Empathy. Yeah. That is it. Yeah. That solves everything. If you're empathetic towards others, then we don't have this problem, man. Yep. Like, and that's something that was instilled upon me growing up, is like caring about others and caring about how others feel. Yeah. And that's a big part of why I do what I do. I made the realization, I want to say a month or two ago, just kind of reevaluating, constantly what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I realized that as a producer, as a talent manager, and as a speaker, all three of those are in service of others. They're service positions. Because when I'm a producer, I'm servicing directors and talent and everybody else. Yep. That's part of the crew. Financiers, like everybody. It's my job to service everybody. As a manager, I'm literally serving my clients. And as a speaker, I'm serving the audience, helping them any way I can.
There's a truth in that sentiment of, no matter what you do, if you're an actor, you're serving your audience. If you're a director, you're serving, like, If you're a salesperson, you're serving your clients. If you're a CEO, you're serving your employees in theory, or your shareholders, depending on your economic
I hate to interrupt you right there, but
Yeah.
that's the one thing you just said, in theory. I was waiting for you to like catch that. A lot of people don't see it like that.
Correct.
And
Right.
that's the problem.
It's a mentality.
Yeah.
Well, we very specifically say there's a service industry, and that's like hospitality, hotel, hospitality.
I give you things.
Service.
I clean for you. Yeah.
But we're all in service. We should all be in
service.
service. Yeah.
We should all be.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
And that speaks to the empathy. If we all took, I mean, quite honestly, it's maybe I oversimplify. It's a simple frame, though, is to say, I am not doing this for me. I am doing this for my family, or I am doing this for whomever I'm talking to. It's an instant flip that turns into a compassionate engagement because you are immediately interested in someone else's interest, not just your own.
Which is a form of embracing some humanity.
And being open to other things.
Yeah. Which I am curious to ask a couple of questions, but since we were talking about race, generally, how often and how comfortable are you talking about race?
I'm open.
Yeah.
I'm open to it. I mean, my whole thing is a lot of people aren't because they're stuck in their ways.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, this shouldn't be a discussion, period, because we're all the same. That, like, when the George Floyd stuff happened, I made a statement on my Instagram and not taking anything away from Black Lives Matter or African American lives, but I did state something similar to what you had mentioned earlier about how we have a lot of work to do across many fronts. The LGBTQ community and religion and so on and so forth. But like, it wasn't taking away from what happened. I was just like, look, like, this just shows we have so much room to go. Like, we have so many things that we have to fix. This is one of many problems.
Yeah.
And we need to address that, and I don't like seeing people suffering. It's something that goes back to how empathetic I am, I guess. And it kills me to see people sad or upset or hurting, and especially people who are close to me. And that's why when it comes down to it, like, it has to be something that you're willing to understand and grow in empathy and in understanding, because I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always comfortable or knowledgeable or understanding in regards to this stuff. That's just because that the way life was for me early on, I didn't have that exposure, right? But I grew and I was open to it, and I learned. I had moments where I was like, okay, my thought process on this was wrong. And then, I grew. Or I didn't have this knowledge and now I do, but it's understanding that it's okay to say that, and okay to say that, my way of thinking or lack of understanding was not right. And I grew and I evolved and I changed. That's the whole point of it.
How was that post received?
Excuse me?
How was that post received?
99.9% great. I had one negative comment who said it was tone deaf. And I was taken aback at first because I was like, that's not who I am. But it was their opinion, and they're allowed to have it. But for me, it was, once again, I wasn't taking anything away from what was happening, but it just, for me, it was like, we need to fix this, but we also have so many other things we have to address.
It's sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's something that, without a lot of thought, I think it's hard for humans. I think it's hard for us to naturally realize the complexity and like allow multiple things to be true at once.
Yeah.
And I say allow, mentally allow, because obviously multiple things are happening at once in real life. The fact that Black Lives Matter doesn't negate the fact that all lives do indeed matter. Like, it breaks some people's brain, I guess. And it's like, no. Like, there's an issue. We're trying to put out a fire. The fact that Black Lives Matter and there's an issue there right now does not mean that there's not also an issue with how we treat the Muslim community in this country, how we treat LGBTQ plus community, how we treat women
100%.
in the world. Like, all of these things can be true. And also, there's inhumane treatment of pets. Like, and it's hard, I think, because we can only focus on so much.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to focus on it to acknowledge that there's an issue there. And I think sometimes people lose that.
It's and the reason I asked that question is because I was wondering if you got any All Lives Matter kind of backlash, because a lot of times that is used to, I'm not saying you were, but it's to contrast it. And then when people like yourself who say things in a sincere, honest way get conflated with that, right? And it's like, oh, is this what you mean? So I was curious if that happened. So I'm glad
we're in a state right now where people are on edge and ready to bite your head off.
Totally.
And especially if you're against what they believe, even a little bit.
I mean,
hold on one second. And my whole thing is like, if all lives matter, we wouldn't be talking about Black Lives Matter.
That's
right.
And yes, all lives matter, but do all lives matter to this system and that system and to you and to me? Like, they all matter, but are they all treated the same?
Yeah.
Therefore, the system does not see them as mattering, and therefore, all lives don't matter. In fact, as it relates to the argument that we're making, right?
We wouldn't be making this argument if all lives actually mattered, bro.
Yeah, I think part of it is, like, for me, like, after Floyd, especially with COVID and everything we're going through, like, I was in a level of pain where I just didn't want to hear that comment that was like, everybody matters, or like, everybody else has issues. Like, at the moment, that was just like, I couldn't hear it. But that didn't mean that the comment's wrong. It didn't take away from the validity of it. And it's kind of a very trolling comment, the All Lives Matter.
I mean, consider the source. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I consider the source.
There's
a question I want to ask quick. Okay, go ahead, Keith.
But one thing, like, to the whole point of multiple things existing at the same time is, like, you're a Black man, but you also walk on two legs and aren't in a wheelchair, right? So you have certain capability privileges that someone who may be in a wheelchair doesn't have if a building isn't handicap accessible, right? Like, those, it doesn't mean your existence as a Black man is any less like that we shouldn't pay attention to the oppression that you, or the bias or the bigotry or the prejudice that you've experienced. But at the same time, like, two things existing at the same time, like, it's hard to have that conversation with a lot of people. Or even more specifically, one that breaks people's brains. Me saying that you two have experienced white privilege doesn't mean that I haven't myself experienced privilege. That's right. Because I have had a ton. Economic opportunity. Like you said, I'm able-bodied. Like, there's ton. Like, it doesn't. One does not negate the other. Right.
People just don't listen, though, man. Like, it just because, like, you say I've experienced white privilege, some people would take offense to that and just immediately get enraged, like, you don't know my life and da-da-da. But it's like, just shut up. Yeah. Listen to what we're talking about, right? You are right. I just said I grew up in a system where I had very few, just from a diversity standpoint, it just was not there. And that wasn't, like, on purpose. It was just my life. And I'm blessed the way my life is and whatever. But at the same time, like, it wasn't by choice, you know? So that's how I grew up. You are right. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, fuck you for saying that. Like, it's so funny to sit here and, I mean, have these opportunities where you sit back and, like, you know, you look at that side. Let's just say that. We'll look at that side and I'm like, is this really the hill you want to die on? Think, like,
is this that one?
Is this it? Because the how intense that side is, and this isn't a left or right. This is a right or wrong for me. I'm just being straight up. This is about right or wrong. So for me, I sit back and I'm like, this will inevitably end at some point, God willing, sooner than later. And when it does, the chips are gonna fall, big time.
There is
Preach.
It'll be out there in how we manage this, because I think there is a component of when someone's saying that, they're also yelling because they don't feel heard, and there is a component, and this kind of goes into a path that I do want to get to on connecting with people with kindness, and that is such a big component of your platform. That I agree, there's right and wrong. I don't understand the need to die on that hill. Like, I concede in that theoretical, realistic scenario that you worked hard, you came from tough beginnings, and that you've built a life for yourself that I think is incredibly good on you. But I also concede that if you were not white, it would have been harder. That's
it's because if your opinion is different than mine, then mine is invalid, or one of them has to be invalid.
Right. And it doesn't.
Theoretically.
And, we'll have a conversation that comes out in the future that we were interviewed on that expresses the opportunity that we try to present to have compassion, even with that right and wrong differentiation in a conversation, which leads me to a question. But Rodney said he had one, so I have to.
Well, I kind of wanted to pivot. Like, so reading your credentials are silly, man. Like producer, talent manager, international speaker. Something I don't see, which I very much I wonder if you see yourself as, is entrepreneur. You seem very entrepreneurial, and in the lead up to this, you said one of the things, something that was important to you, is swinging for the fence. And you seem to have a very healthy, if not uncommon, relationship with failure, and would love to jump into that a little bit. Yeah. How do you look at failure? Well, like, what does swinging for the fence mean to you?
Setting absolutely outrageous goals. And I'm not saying like monetary. I'm saying like, it could be as simple as like, I'm gonna ask out the girl that just blows me away, like the most successful, the most talented, the smartest, like whoever I have in that regard, whether it's celebrity, status, like I just don't care. Like for me, it's like, this is what I want. I don't care about status or like you're not in the same zip code. Like this is what I want, and I'm gonna go get it. And if I don't get it, so be it. I learned, right? And I'm gonna move forward. In regards to work, like I did not have working in Hollywood as part of my plan. That was never part of my plan. Ever. I went to NC State for engineering. That lasted 15 minutes.
Hey.
What kind of engineering did you start with?
I believe it was civil.
He's like, I don't even know.
Well, it was 15 minutes, I'm telling you.
Well, here's the funny thing about life, right? So I was in high school and I did really well in high school. Whatever that's worth. I only applied to one college. That was NC State. And I applied for engineering, which was like the top college in NC State. And I got in. But I only did that because most of my family are engineers. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I'm just do it. First class, 15 minutes, went to my counselor, I'm out. Be like, that was
literally 15 minutes.
Yeah, like I literally left. And I was like, this is not it. And then I followed my passions. And
super quick on that, because that seems small, but it is not small. You, like, most people will sit through a movie that they loathe just because they're like, I have to finish this. It's like, no, you can actually turn it off or get up and leave.
You have a choice. Yeah.
But it expands to everything. Like people who hate their career, people who are in bad relationship. Like, so what is it about your life that gave you the authority, the confidence, the whatever it is, the chutzpah to just be like, you know what? Nah, I'm out. Like, how? Why?
Look, man, we have a finite amount of time.
Oh,
None of us get out alive.
you're dropping knowledge bombs today, my man.
We have a finite amount of time, dude. Like, bringing up Chadwick Boseman again. Like, I am devastated that he's no longer with us. And this is coming from a diehard Marvel fan. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's no longer Black Panther. I mean, he'll always be Black Panther, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm devastated for that caliber of a human being is no longer here. And the work that he did on a day-to-day basis, the impact that he did on a day-to-day basis is no longer here. There's a giant void now for that level of giving and understanding and impact that I long to fill. Like I strive for that level of how he is being remembered is not for his work on screen. Granted, that's a big part of who he was. Sure. But he is being mourned and remembered for the caliber of a human being he was, of how professional, giving, kind, empathetic, intelligent, artistic, like that.
Truth to power. Like,
everybody should strive to live a life such as that.
You know what's really funny? My therapist gave me an exercise this week to write down a couple heroes. First one I wrote down was Chadwick. Second one was T'Challa, but first one.
I love it. One and the same. I actually met Chadwick at the Age of Ultron premiere, and that was right after he was cast as T'Challa. So I grabbed him on the carpet and congratulated him, and I told him I really loved his recent project, which was Draft Day, which was the NFL film where he played a college football player who was drafted and whatnot, and Vontae Mack, and he just did a really great job being a sports guy and a film guy. It was really cool to see kind of both those worlds collide in that film, and he was like he was taken aback that I saw that film. Because it wasn't a multi-billion-dollar, very niche. Yeah. So I kind of pained my way through that, obviously, being a Steelers fan. But I was like, let them have a successful,
Yeah, hey, if they have some success, it's going to be on screen, and it's going to be in the draft. It's going to be in the draft. Wow. Not going to be
shots fired. I mean,
my wife's going to watch this, and she's not going to be.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, he was just so kind and humble, and looking back, man, like I wish I would have grabbed him at other events and premieres that I've been at. But you're always like, oh, I'll see him next time, and then you're like, damn.
So what
he did in 43 years of life, many people wouldn't accomplish in
talk about
year lifespans.
Talk about you only have a limited amount of time and taking advantage of it.
But my whole thing is like, we live in a world where it's like, I want to be famous, and I don't want to be an influencer. I hate influencers. I really don't like that.
What is an influencer to you?
An influencer to me is someone who is solely focused on themselves, monetizing themselves, and they just don't give a shit about anyone or anything else. And there are way too many of those in the world today. I want to be a person of influence. There's a big difference. Okay, so like I want more followers so I can impact more people. Like, it's not about me. You give me 1 million followers, I would do serious good damage with that, because I have 23,000 on Instagram, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things. But man, the messages I get, the comments I get from people who I have never even met, who are spread across the entire world, where you've saved my life, you've changed my life. That is so gratifying and really lights a fire under your ass of how each of us can make a difference. And I mean that. I don't look at myself as a famous celebrity or anything remotely close to that. You know, my friends and family from back home, they're like, "Oh my God, you're like Brad Pitt," because I'm like out in Hollywood. I'm just like, guys, like fucking relax. But like for me, it's so much bigger than that. I truly believe everybody can make a difference if they care enough to do so.
One of my favorite things about your website, real quick, is
I think you're going to say what I was going to say.
Is the testimonials that you have. Is this a twin brain moment?
I hate you.
Is this real?
So much.
Like, this is good. I mean, let's embrace it. Let's rally. We're on video now. We can have twin brains on camera. Is the testimonials you have, not so much what they say, but how they happened. Like the idea of when you have any kind of following or you have any kind of attention publicly, to whomever is following you, you are unattainable. Very much common, right? Like, so, oh, how could that happen? How could that be? And there's a mystique and an aura. And when people reach out to you, you reach back and you don't waste time. And you set up time and you have conversations and you keep in contact. Like the selflessness of your time, which is the most valued commodity that you have, you give it, you spend it and invest it wisely. It's not an investment in the other person because you believe in them or know them. It's an investment because they seemingly need something that you have to offer and you're willing to spend it on them.
And to add to that, I was thinking about this, but I was not going to share it with you directly, Brad. But so your mission of kindness, like it comes across super quickly. Because like because we don't interview everybody. Like us, people ask us all the time, like, how do you pick people? And honestly, it's a feel. Like it's just a feel.
Yeah.
And I looked at your Instagram I swear, I was in a car wash and I looked at your Instagram for like 3 minutes. I was like, yep, Keith. Yep. Green light.
Me too. Like I watched one video and I was like, kindness done.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I want to go back to something you said about the unattainable nature. That goes back to like the shooting for the fence and things of that nature for me. Like, I don't like that. For me, I want to be relatable. I want to be attainable. I want people to look at me who are, 10 years age difference and be like, I can be Brad in the next 3 to 5 years. I want that for them. Mm-hmm. I genuinely do, because one, I'm not Bill Gates, right? So like that level of relatability is so important, because we follow the Gary Vaynerchuks and the Tom Billius and the Tony Robbins and guys like that. And you're like,
are you in my podcast playlist, bro?
Yeah, I know. Do you want to see the motivational playlist?
Yeah.
Well, what's been really cool, getting to know Gary, getting to know Tom, Lewis Howes, Jay Shetty, like everybody's the same. It goes back to where we started this conversation, right? Everybody's the same. They're at a higher level in their career, which shouldn't take away from you whatsoever. But like, I want to have a grounded aspect to my brand and who I am, and a relatable aspect to it, to where there isn't a disconnect, where there will be a disconnect with Bill Gates or Tony Robbins or guys like that, Warren Buffett, because you're just like, wow, we just talked for 3 seconds and he's made $3 million. There's a huge disconnect there. But like for me, my life is not perfect. It's not complete. It's not self-sustaining by any means. So there's relatability there. And I want to express that, and I do that with my content, where I'm very transparent, and I want the following to really feel that and get that, and I think I've done a good job doing that, because the responses and the communique and the stuff that I get from these people, it is just so heartwarming and positive, and it just makes me want to grow more and do more.
The wanting to be a person of influence comment reminds me, I was talking to one of our past guests recently. She did a thing for me, and she said, everybody is looking for significance, and she's like, you know, maybe instead of just looking for significance, we should strive to be a significant in other people's lives and significant for other people.
And it's funny you say that, because, you know, it goes back to the quote. I'm going to butcher it, but if you want to truly be happy, live a life of service. And that is the truest, most factual statement ever, because my life is not easy, but I'm the happiest I've ever been, because my life is that. Like, I literally, like, as a talent manager and a producer, I have many relationships. Notice I said relationships instead of connections, where I can help people. And, you know, there are people in the business who monetize their relationships and their connections, and go, good on you, whatever. But that's not what I want to do all the time. Like, I have been on TikTok a lot lately, looking for talent, and also just following people I admire and respect their work or how they carry themselves or whatever. And I've been recently just reaching out to random people that I follow, and been like, you know, noticing where they're at in their platform and being like, hey, I could help you get verified if that's something that you're interested in. And I think we all know that blue check is very elusive and important from a brand standpoint. And man, I've gotten 15 to 20 people verified in the last 2 months on TikTok, and I haven't charged a single person. And people think I'm full of shit. They're like, "Oh yeah, for free? Yeah, right." Like, and I'm just
why
like,
would anybody believe you?
And I'm literally like, if I can help you, I will. And that is how I carry myself. And because for me personally, I've been desperately trying to get verified on Instagram. That has been something for my brand, for what I've done, what I've accomplished, who I work for. It is such a valuable asset in my line of work to have that. And for whatever reason, it has not happened yet. But I'm able to get other people verified. So I am doing that because I know the level of importance it holds. So
how do you so we talk about this a lot, right? Is like, for our cause to anchor humanity and compassionate conversation, if we impact one person, and anytime we get a story, it's like, okay, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And it's still hard because you want to impact more, right?
Yeah.
So you're not, like, it can be easy to just get caught. It's like, oh, when are those numbers going to go up? You know, we're at here, I want more. How do we do this? Like, that cognitive balance can be difficult. And I probably struggle with it far more than Rodney. So I'm glad we have a business partnership, because, you know, the way we function is more operational. But like, how do you not find yourself? Do you ever do that?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
how do you manage that?
It's extremely easy to fall into the, oh, my followers haven't gone up, or this, that, and the other. But I look at the big picture, man. You know, like, there are people with 60 million followers who have done nothing for anybody else. Where the level of impact that I've had on people, in the grand scheme of things, it's, you know, obviously nothing, but is far greater than most. And that's because I care enough to do that. And off of what I was saying just now with the verification thing, is like, I literally have just reached out to people. I help them, you know, that I work with them, and I help them achieve that. And I had one of the recent creators reach out to me, and he texted me, he's like, do you have time to talk? And I was like, I knew right then what this was about, because I just submitted him. So I called him, and he was like, dude, my mom just called me and said she saw the blue check next to my name. I just freaking out. And he's like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I've been trying to get this for so long, and I just, like, I can't tell you what this means to me and my family and my future. And I'm just sitting back here like, bless up, dude. Like, you know, like, I got you. And he was like, bro, like, for real, I'm like, go make the most of it.
Yeah.
Like, go do your
thing. It's the beginning. It's not the end. It's the beginning.
Yeah. But it's that impact just in that scenario where his mom's like crying, and like they're all celebrating, and if you don't have the relationships in this business, those things are very hard to attain. And in my line of work, I have those. I'm grateful to have those relationships.
Yeah.
So I help the people that I can, right?
The other thing Keith and I talk about a lot, and mainly because Vaynerchuk talks about it a lot, is giving. Like, and we've been thinking about it. We've been evaluating, like, talk about that hard look in.
Yeah.
Like, we've been looking at our content, like, damn, we're asking for a lot. It's like, nah, like, what can we give? Where can we give? And I love hearing you give like practical examples of how you're doing that. I've actually written down like 3 ideas, Keith, of what things that we can be doing to give more. But just I love it, and 100% agree that the times where I feel the most connected to myself and just best, frankly, is when I'm doing something for somebody else without a expectation of return. Yeah.
And that's and here's how I look at it too. I'm a relationship guy, and relationships don't happen overnight. You have to prove yourself. So for me, what's better than providing enormous amounts of value right out of the gate and not asking for a single damn thing? You know, I've had experiences with some of the closest people I call friends today where I've provided so much value to the point where they're like, and like, what can I do for you? Like, please, like, tell me something. Like, and I'm just like, I'm good. It's not about that. But it gets to that point because, you know, that's how you become valuable. And it doesn't always have to be grand, huge gestures either. Like, we're talking like basic level kindness can make a world of difference in someone's life. You complimenting someone, you just texting someone and being like, hey, I was thinking of you today, you know, and I hope you're doing amazing. Like, that level of care, which we are all capable of. And don't tell me, oh, I'm a horrible texter, blah, blah, blah. Like, shut up. Like, you either want to do it or you don't, period. And especially now, like, I've had moments of depression during this time where I've just literally mind-numbing, just don't want to do anything, feel like shit. And, you know,
when you say this time, COVID.
I mean, entering 2020, I was on fire. Like, I had a lot of stuff rolling. I was feeling really good about where I was at in my career and moving forward. And obviously it stopped everything, like literally derailed the train. And, you know, I had to pick up the pieces and adjust and kind of pivot in different directions and find ways to keep going, basically.
What did that? So I kind of want to dig into that. I mean, we it'd be easy for somebody to be like, Brad's got it all. He should, like, depression. He should never be depressed. Like, so COVID hits, business hits a standstill. Like, what does that do to you? What does that do to you mentally? What's it do to confidence? Like, how does that depression manifest for you, or depressive like state? Like, how does that manifest?
I'm a workaholic. I love working. I can't turn it off. You know, like, even when I'm on vacation, I'm just like itching. I'm like, fuck, I have to do something, you know? So I'm constantly going, even when I'm on vacation or, you know, places where I should be relaxing. I do take time to like chill, and that's generally like gaming with my boys and, you know, watching sports or movies or things like that. But not being able to do what I was doing, which was like in Los Angeles, it's nonstop. Go, 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 go. Right. So it's coffee meetings, dinner meetings, lunch meetings, conference calls, premieres, events, this, that, and the other. All stopped. You know, I was blessed and grateful enough to literally be on a red carpet almost once a week for some sort of premiere or event.
Are you an extrovert? Like, do you get your energy from being around other people?
I'm a very outgoing person. So for me, like, going to these events and that's not only fun for me because I love movies and just that those experiences that come with that, but it also allowed me to build as a professional because I would literally be on these carpets with talent and producers and directors and composers, and I would just build relationships and meet new people. And that's where I was able to kind of get a lot of stuff done, where most people would go, you know, here's a good example. Most people go to those things and try to get selfies and like screw around and whatever. I would literally leave with phone numbers. and plans for coffee and meetings and things of that nature.
So that was work for you, kind of. I mean, in a fun way, but it was work.
And I don't want it to seem like, oh, it's a derogatory, like he had ulterior motives. Like, no, I go in and I'm always a value first person, right? So if there's a, composer, for example, I went to the Invisible Man premiere. I think it was in December or something. Universal's brilliant film. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. It's great.
It really is.
Yeah, it shocked a lot of people because the budget wasn't that big, but man, was it just so well done. And
adding to list,
Elizabeth Moss crushed that. And then Benjamin Wallfish, the composer. I mean, from the first 5 seconds, that aerial shot with the ocean leading up to the house, the score literally set the tone. I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna regret this. But it was a blast. But I'm on the carpet and I see Benjamin Wallfish, who's a tremendous composer, one of the best in the world. I'm a big fan of score music, and that ties me back to film and TV shows and video games. So I love that kind of music. So I had the opportunity to meet him and his lovely wife, and we exchanged pleasantries. And I ended up walking away with his phone number and plans to kind of keep in touch. And if I can help you, let me know. Blah blah blah. And I ended up texting him after, didn't hear back. That was fine. I understand the business. And then a few months later, he had an issue with social media with a fake account and somebody posting inappropriate stuff. So I literally texted him out of the blue and was like, hey man, I can help you with this. And he hit me back. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't see your first message. I deeply, deeply sorry. Please forgive me. Da da da. And I was like, relax, man. I get the business. Like, it's fine. And I was like, but I can help you with your problem. And he was like, oh my God, if you could fix this, it'd be amazing. So I not only got rid of the fake account, I got him verified in less than 24 hours. I just cleaned up the whole issue that was there for him. And he was just blown away. Didn't ask for anything. It was just like, but guess what? I now have a really great relationship with Benjamin Wallfish right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's better? Would you rather have a one-off payment of $5,000 or a long-term relationship with a person that could potentially make you hundreds of thousands of dollars later? But that's the thing. Like, people think too much about the quick short-term gains and quick fixes and things like that. You're not going to establish yourself from a reputation standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, from a capability standpoint with that kind of stuff, especially starting out of the gate, right? So it's like, I always say, like, if I can help you, I will. I don't want to make promises, but I feel good about this, So let's see what we can do. And when I go to these things, even going back into college, right? When I was young and high school and college days, I would go to training camp. I've been around the Steelers since 2005, so I'd be on the field during practice and interacting with my boys on the team, and I would bring my friends and we'd have a blast. And once again, at the end of practice, everybody would scatter to get photos and autographs, and we'd all come back at the end and compare who got what and whatever. And they'd always come back to me and be like, who'd you get? I'd be like, I didn't get any. And they're like, you didn't get any autographs? I'm like, no. Pictures? No. But I got 7 phone numbers. Like, that was my goal. I wanted to have genuine relationships with these guys that I supported so heavily, day in and day out, Sundays, Thursdays, Mondays, didn't matter. And that's from an early age. That was my goal. I didn't care about autographs and, fleeting shit like that. I wanted lasting relationships. So, Willie Parker was the first professional athlete that I connected with on the Steelers. And he's one of my closest friends, if basically family at this point to this day. I was his biggest fan growing up. I ended up handling his retirement with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was a full circle story if I've ever seen it. And,
that's dope.
I'm now Uncle Brad to his kids. It's just when you look at the bigger picture, I would take that any day of the week over a quick $5,000.
We just recorded, so we have this series called The Dad Chronicles, where Rodney and I just pontificate things.
We wax poetic to our daughters.
And we talked about kindness today. It was actually as a result of
I love this
interview. And one of the things that came out of it was kindness is lasting. Anything else is short term, and you don't know what the outcome could be. Could be positive, could be negative, but kindness is lasting. It will last you forever.
And what Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Rodney said that.
I called that exact quote up in the video. So, well, not the exact, but I have a question. So back to kind of the entrepreneurial thought and tying it into what you just said about the relationship. When you're starting out, or as you're starting a new endeavor, how did you how do you now think about the idea of managing, hey, I'm building something for the long term, I'm building a relationship, so I don't want to sacrifice tomorrow for today. I don't want to get that quick buck. At the same time, I want to be successful. I need to eat. I got bills to pay. Like, how do you balance that, or how do you think about balancing that?
Right or wrong, I have my ways. Like I'm stuck in the way I do things. I could be monetizing my connections right now, my relationships, and making a good amount of money, especially right now. But I've chosen not to do that because the long-term goal is more important. And even when I talk to these people specifically for the verification stuff that I've talked about, it's bigger than just now. I was like, look, like if this works, I hope we have a long-term relationship. And the response is generally the same, where it's like, hey, I'm loyal. If you help me, I will ride with you forever. Like, this is important for my career.
So when you look at all of this and we go back kind of tying it together, and we think about like Chadwick, this speaks exactly to the legacy of Chadwick, right? It wasn't about whatever, at least what we know and what you know about him. What is your swing for the fence goal with all of these things that you're doing?
I want to be happy. I want my family, my friends to be happy, and I want to impact a lot of people in a positive way.
The common thread that I'm hearing from you is like, you're very aware that you're building a legacy.
I'm freaking trying.
Yeah.
Like that's a fact. It's like I said, good or bad, I am the way I am. Lord knows, growing up, my parents were on me about, you can't be doing free work. You have to pay the bills. And I'm like, you don't understand. It's like bigger than that, So, and I left a lot of money on the table. I have left a lot of money on the table, and I will most likely continue to do that for the bigger picture. But I would not be where I am today if I monetized every single conversation I've ever had.
So I want to dig in there. We have about 10 minutes left. Where did that come from? Like that vision to say, because this is the trap so many of us I've fallen into. Yeah. We've been talking about this for 3 years. You need to do this, your parents tell you, and your response is, but you don't get it. Like, where does that come from? Because shit.
I don't know. I've always had an innate understanding of people.
But it's the belief in yourself.
Yeah,
like, but really believe in that.
It's more the belief in what I'm trying to do, not necessarily. Yes, me, but the impact that it's going to have on somebody else. I care way too much about other people, good or bad. Like, that's just how I am. The empathy levels off the charts, and I try to back that up as often as I can. But yeah, it's you have to have that blind belief in reality, obviously.
Right.
But otherwise, like, what is it? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. For me, like I said, I wouldn't be sitting here in the position I am if I didn't move the way I have my whole life. you know. And it's funny going back to a guy like Willie Parker. He thought I was so annoying when we first started out. Like he didn't understand why I did what I did, and why I would text him every couple weeks checking in. How's the family? How's your training? How's this? How's that? Never asked for shit. You know, it was just my genuine giving a crap about him and his life and his well-being. And then, you know, we had a conversation years later after he retired. We're on a cruise together. We're sitting down having drinks, and at this point he was reaching out to be a coach, getting a coaching internship in the NFL. So he was outreaching to a bunch of teams and a bunch of coaches and front office people. And he looked at me, he goes, I get it now. He's like, it's all about building relationships. And he's like, I get it. And that was one of the most just like iconic moments in my life to, you know, he's older than me. Like there's a 6, 7, 8 year difference in age, but he understood later where I was coming from.
Is it? Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, it's just a laugh we share all the time now because, like I said, growing up, like I was a huge fan of his, and then I was able to handle his retirement, and now I'm Uncle Brad, and you know our relationship is just awesome, and I'm so grateful for it.
There is a DNA, an evolutionary process that we need to capture on this DNA that you have, because so many people probably think, what's your motive? Right? Like,
well, we're taught that people are trying to take advantage of us.
Yeah, 100%. Like
I can't imagine in Hollywood, everybody thinks that.
Out of me. You're trying to do something like instead of like, wow, this dude just wants to find out and see who I am. Like we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And even if you do get some sort of benefit out of it long term, it doesn't change the direction you go with that relationship. It only fortifies it. And I think they're more of that. Like we need more of that, where we're not expecting the worst in people. Relationship is the goal. And connection. I mean, we talk about it a lot, right? Connection, just people meeting people. Like we talk about that same example where with, the person who's like, all lives matter, right? But there's still an opportunity to connect.
Yeah.
It may not be as deep with that person as it is with this person, but they're just here boiling it down, trying to survive and do something. They just, but I not think on the right side of what you think.
Fear of failure, big time.
Yeah.
The trust is completely gone in most scenarios. I mean, I'll give you an example. A year and a half ago, I was reaching out to a prospective client, an artist that I followed for a long time. One of the most talented artists out there, just creative, just to next level. And I was chasing him for 6 months. I want to manage you. I want to manage you. I want to manage you. We can do big things. Like, let's do this. And he just was nervous. Like he didn't trust me. And I was like, look, like I believe in this. I know what we could do together. I know what I'm good at. I know what you're good at. Our weaknesses complement each other. Like we can do this. And finally he agreed. But his main fear was like, you're gonna screw me over financially. And I was like, that's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. And I was like, I'll prove it to you. The money will go to you. Then you'll pay me. Guess who got the short end of the stick in that scenario? Didn't change a single thing. I did every single thing I said I was going to do for him. Every single thing. We did magic last year together. Like I elevated his brand. I got him opportunities he never had before. We did awesome work together, and I had a blast. But 12 months into it, I never received a cent.
How do you look at the relationship from that point?
You see who people really are, and where their priorities are. And, there's understanding. I'm a very understanding person, but it gets to the point where you're 12 months, a full year from beginning, and a lot of money has been exchanged in that time period. And it's just lying, not giving a shit, and obviously I no longer work with this person, but that reputation, like decisions have consequences and accountability will eventually hit you in the mouth. And that's something where in this world, a lot of people feel like they're invincible and they're indestructible and they pose no threat, to consequence and whatnot. And it's funny, especially in this business, if you're high up in the industry, there is a level of, I'm invincible because there's no accountability overhead.
Right.
A psychological footnote. It is off the case that our biggest fears are because of our own psychology, our own tendency toward the thing. Like I'm afraid that you would screw me over because I've screwed other people over, or because I would screw you over.
Yeah. But here's the thing though, like that experience impacted my life personally, professionally, mentally, emotionally. Like it was rough because sure. I gave my all for my client and I did everything that I said I was going to do, and then I ended up getting the short end of the stick. But that hasn't changed a single thing.
It changed and I think this is the key, and I want to kind of we're 3 minutes left. It changed your relationship with that individual, but it didn't change your perspective on other people.
100%.
And you didn't lose. I mean, you did what you set out to do. It's kind of that whole
you stayed accountable.
I win or I learn. I never lose, right? Like
and like I said, I'm true to who I am. And even when I do make a mistake and I screw up, I own it.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, that's the level of accountability that I have. And when you're an adult, you'll make mistakes, right?
For sure.
You're human.
When you're a kid, you'll make way bigger, way worse mistakes, right? Because you're just learning.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a level of understanding for kids and teenagers growing up. But when you're 30-something years old, that level of excuses and things of that nature, it's all trash. Like you can't.
At the end of the day, your goals align to your integrity, and you've put them hand in hand.
You have to, but that's the thing. Like Warren Buffett says, it takes 25 years to build a solid reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
30 seconds, probably.
Now it's 30 seconds with social media.
Yeah.
So it's
one
like
post.
Yeah, one post or one thing that goes viral, good or bad. Like it's my thing. It's I've said a lot of people, specifically the person I was just talking about, the only person that can hurt them is themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, before we ask our final question, how do you protect yourself against that? Like, you could be your biggest detriment. And you're also taking in these signals, right? You're 20K followers. Like, there's going to be negative stuff. There's going to be shade. There's going to be hate. What do you do to keep your head right? Blinders?
Focus. Yeah, focus.
Do you meditate or anything?
Huh?
Do you meditate or anything?
No. I'm too antsy for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm just highly focused. I'd like to think I'm really mentally tough. I've worked on my mental toughness, and with failure, your mental toughness goes through the roof.
Does that mean that you don't hear them, you don't read them, or you read them and it's just like, all right, cool, thanks, and you just keep moving?
Exactly that.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's so easy to sit on the sidelines and talk shit.
For sure.
It's much harder to be on the field making shit happen.
You know the man in the arena quote?
Go ahead.
Do you know the man in the arena quote? It's I think it's Eisenhower. I don't know. Brene Brown brought it up in one of her most recent books, and it's like, and I'm gonna butcher the hell out of this. I'm just gonna paraphrase it, but it's like the person whose opinion that I care about is the one that's in the arena, bleeding and sweating and struggling, even if they're on their back. Like, they got in the arena. They tried.
Yeah.
It's easy to be, like, to your point, it's so easy to be out there throwing rocks, throwing tomatoes.
100%.
You suck. Like, well, what have you done?
Yeah.
And so it kind of, the comment is to say, if you're out there doing it, like, listen to others that are doing it. The ones that are just heckling from the sides, like, yeah.
Positive inputs all day long.
I would just say, look, failure is part of life. Accept it. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to come out the other side better than before. And don't let people who do you wrong impact who you are at your core or change your values or how you go about things. You may take different approaches in regards to protecting yourself, like getting a great attorney. But it's just, if you stick to your guns and do things the right way, your reputation, your character, you know, when I first came out here, people looked at me like I was an alien. They're like, "What is your fucking problem? Like, why are you like this?" And
You're
I'm
broken.
like, yeah, like,
y'all are broken.
Like, why are you talking to people in different departments? Because I want to meet people. I want to have good relationships with everybody in this building, because ultimately that'll make me better at my job and make everything better for everybody.
So you answered the final question without us even asking it.
So we got it, but I feel like I still want to ask it. I do, because I feel like he's been dropping gems the whole time. There's going to be another one.
Let's go.
God dang, man, you just that last one is so good. Like, talk to everybody. Okay, Brad. Firstly, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, like this has been fun. Awesome. It has been. I don't know, man. It's just been a good conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and like I said earlier, like I thank you for your comment. Like it meant a lot to me, so I appreciate it.
Got you.
So the last question is: now that this is your audience, not ours, what would you leave them with?
Lead with kindness. Plain simple, big or small. Do what you can for other people, because a little bit of happiness goes a long way.